weekend vlog! It's a vlog that happens sometimes. Hello ladies and gentlemen. Today we're at San Diego Air and Space Museum. And here is the famous SR-71 Blackbird, the world's fastest airplane in the world and the most quietest airplane in the world. It was actually one of the best airplanes that ever existed during the Cold War. And here I have Stephen Lytell, who's going to talk about the SR-71 Blackbird.
Back in 1976, I was driving in Palmdale when all of a sudden this Klingon warship popped up and was hovering above me, and it happened to be an SR-71, which was top secret at the time, and I had no clue what it was. I thought it was maybe an alien spaceship or something like that. The government didn't even admit they existed back then. Anyway, it hovered over my car. I was doing about 70 miles an hour in my car. I was driving, which was a 73 Impala. I was doing about 70 miles an hour, and all of a sudden it disappeared. It just went up and disappeared, and it was silent. There was no noise whatsoever. So I thought it was an alien spacecraft.
Yeah, so here it is. We're gonna get a zoom in. Again, these things were so silent, these SR-71s.
I didn't even hear it.
You didn't hear it one bit. Skunk Works created these things. See, what happened, folks, was the Cold War was going on, and the Russians shot down our U-2 spy plane. And when the U-2 was shot down, they said, well, we gotta get a better airplane that's quieter and faster so it won't get shot down. And it can fly higher up so it will never get shot down again. So they created this beauty here. And it's huge, as you can see. And
Mach 3 or Mach 4?
Mach 5, I believe. The plaque. But as you can see, look how big that thing is. I mean, you can just imagine my dad's old car right under this thing.
In the freeway, and this was hovering over me.
Imagine this thing just appear, and you're in a car. And here's gonna be the plaque that we're gonna see what it says here.
Lockheed A-12 Blackbird.
Imagine that this thing was hovering over and you're going about 70, and this just, so it was a perfect Cold War weapon. So anyway, here we are in the museum, and my dad left something in the car. He wants to go grab it. But anyway, behind me here is, I believe, a replica of the Spirit of St. Louis. The real one is in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. This is a replica of the airplane. So we're gonna go inside after my dad, Stephen Lytell, gets something here. Anyway, folks, this is a replica of the real ones at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. But Charles Lindbergh was the first to fly across the transatlantic flight. Here is the X-1. X-1 was the first to break the sound barrier. Sound barrier was broken in 1947. That's the X1. So most of these are models, folks. A lot of them are replicas because the Smithsonian has most of them. Of course, you do have some real stuff. I think up above might be some real rockets. Some real stuff here. It talks about how flight works, how birds work. There might be some real rockets though. That might be a real rocket though. This is the beginning of the. It talks about how flight works, and this is all about. How we launch space. We have plenty of satellites of space junk here, and an International Space Station and satellites, and we have our satellite television. Howard Hughes was a pioneer in and satellites. They launched them in the first. I think these are probes. This is a model of the probes that went to Venus and all over our galaxy. This is the Apollo 9 orbited the moon. This is the real deal with the Apollo 9 orbiter. And this orbited the moon. Apollo 11 was what landed on the moon. And there's a real rocket over there. When it says don't touch, that means it's real. So that must be that's a real rocket from the space shuttle. Here's a tire from the space shuttle. Oh, here's a model of the rockets, and we were, remember, this was the Cold War. Remember, this was the Cold War, so we were, space race and stuff. There's one of the Wright gliders, the Wright brothers. And there is a model of Sputnik. Again, the real Sputnik is in the Smithsonian right now. And there is a British junker, or junk or whatever, a British P whatever. And there's a satellite thing. Oh, this is real. What is this? What is it? This is an Apollo oxygen tank. Actual, that's why it's behind glass. It's an actual Apollo platform. Obviously, this is a real helmet from the Apollo missions. When the Apollo 11 landed on the moon. The real stuff is, like again I said, folks, the real stuff is in the Smithsonian's. So, but this is what they got that's not in the Smithsonian. Because of the real space race. Because when Sputnik landed, as you can see, when Sputnik landed, it scared people. And so we had a real race to battle who could land until we finally did in 1969. Red Baron. This is a Fokker D1. This is the Red Baron that Snoopy flies for the people that like Snoopy. World War I. There's an engine from World War I, the Curtiss engine. But yeah, the Red Baron. Finally, the Fokker, the German plane went 103 miles an hour. And here's an ambulance from World War I. As I said back when I did the Disney Museum, folks, this was another one of the ambulances. The many ambulances that helped with the Red Cross. Remember, this was supposed to be the war that ended all wars, folks. Here is a British SP-80 V7.C1. This is a British plane. World War I was supposed to be the war that ended all wars here. And then, they really were thinking and there's a German airplane, a German World War I fighter. Remember, folks, when they fought this war, they thought this would be the final. This would be it. There'd be no more war after this. They had no idea what was going to come. This would be the war. They thought they'd be home by Christmas when they fought this war. So what happened? It didn't go that way. It didn't go the way they wanted. When World War I happened, they did not get home by Christmas, unfortunately. They keep going. Another thing I wanted to mention was originally they were just taking pictures when they did stuff. They took pictures and whatnot. And they were just throwing rocks and then began bricks. Also, Zeppelins were kind of the thing. They thought Zeppelins were going to be the future before the Hindenburg. The Germans really thought Zeppelins would really be the future of things. Here's a model of a Zeppelin. And so they really, originally, before they had the machine guns, they would just throw rocks at each other and take pictures as spy planes, but then they just start shooting. And again, they really thought this would just be a reconnaissance and everybody would be home by Christmas. They had no idea that they had no idea that the war would keep going for another 4 years, unfortunately. And both sides really had it out. Of course, when the war ended and then Lindbergh did his transatlantic, then flying kind of got popular. This is the real gear to a biplane. But it took Howard, but one thing to note, people, is Howard Hughes decided, why have a biplane? It's too much weight. Let's make them go faster and make a monoplane. Airmail. That was the way of the future. PSA. PSA Airlines was one of the many airlines that was very famous. Steve's going to talk about PSA.
I flew PSA in the 70s, and we flew 727s tri-jets with the engines on the tail, and the waitresses or the stewardesses wore miniskirts. And the logo was "Fly Me," very, very sexy.
They had smiles on.
And they had smoking sections in the back, smoking sections in the front, non-smoking in the back.
But
this is it, Colin. That's what I flew.
The 727s, huh?
That's what I flew, that 727.
Yeah.
And they had a smile on their face.
Yeah, it started here in San Diego.
Yeah. And I've been on an L-1011.
Been on an L-1011. They started in the 40s, and it was the golden age of flying. And of course, it was something to. Here's the mini skirts that my dad was talking about. As you can see, they wore the pink, the World War II, I guess not until the 80s. I remember in the 80s they wore it.
This is the one I remember.
You remember this. And of course it evolved, because then they started at the unions and deregulation of airlines.
Airplanes were
Deregulation area. They also flew out of Concord, where I'm from.
Oh, there they are. Oh, you know what TWA is? That's
a Connie.
That's a Constellation.
It's a Connie. And you can see a Southwest 737.
Oh, it was on that in Kansas City.
Yeah. And the different commercial flying boats.
Ford tri-motor.
Yeah. Diego. Yo creo que ni al This is Amelia Earhart, and
I'm Amelia Earhart. I have devoted my life to flying, to living an adventure that very few women of my era were able to live. Braving the odds, I was the first woman to successfully fly across the Atlantic Ocean solo in 1933, a feat for which I was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross by the Congress of the United States. The aircraft in which I dared to defy conventional wisdom of bright red Lockheed Vega sits proudly on a pedestal near me in this museum gallery. Know that for my attempted around-the-world flight, my life in aviation has evolved much more than that which I've mentioned to this point. In 1922, I set the women's altitude record of 14,000 feet. Later, I was the first to fly across the United States non-stop. The first to fly from Oakland, California to Honolulu, Los Angeles to Mexico City to Newark, New Jersey, and solo from Cape Town, South Africa to London, England. I was a founder and the first president of the Women's Aviation Association, known as the 99s. I was honored by being elected as an official of the National Aeronautic Association, which allowed me to work with the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale in establishing separate record categories of altitude, speed, and endurance for women pilots. Yes, mine has been a life filled with aerial adventures and personal accomplishments greater than most in aviation would ever expect to equal.
Obviously not Disney animatronic, but so this was the airplane she flew transatlantic that broke.
No, 150 miles.
Oh, was she?
The one she had was 2 engines.
Oh.
This is a racing
Racing plane. Anyway, so these are racing craft. They're you know what that is? That's a B-17 model. And Forever Young. Out there. Let's see what the center is. There's a helicopter. Or someone special. Navy. And someone special will get a kick out of the Top Gun. This is a German Messerschmitt experimental jet. The Germans had the Messerschmitts first with the jets.
Yeah.
They experimented with jet engines. They're the old-fashioned Messerschmitt.
Upside down.
And
I'm just using more.
It's a Mustang.
there's a P-51 Mustang.
I will show you why that plane.
And Messerschmitts were actually better aircraft, folks. The Germans really knew how to. They really knew how to build aircraft. These are actually better. Our P-51s were junk in comparison. So that's one thing you should know, that even though we won the war, we had junky aircraft in comparison to the Germans. The Germans really knew how to fly aircraft. And they're the Japanese Zero, the Pearl Harbor stuff. And the Fafel. And but the Germans really knew what they were doing. They really, we're not talking, obviously the Nazi symbol, but it was really the Germans. They really knew what they were doing. And Germans almost won this war. And of course the Japanese were in for their own, trying to get modernized and landing signals and stuff. But of course that's an actual Zero. This is the Yorktown. But yeah, that's a Zero. And the Mitsubishi Zeros were very advanced aircraft as well. The Germans and Japanese had really good aircraft compared to us. I mean, it's amazing we even won this war with the type of aircraft they had. They had really good aircraft that met those Zeros. This is the model of the Ganger Bay. And of course, you know, Langley. And when I did my atomic museum, you know, I talked about the Cold War. That's what had to stop it, because Hitler almost won. And of course, the Japanese did not want to surrender. They would go to the death as kamikaze, suicide. And this is a Douglas 8-4 Skyhawk. And of course the Cold War. And there is an actual Blue Angel. You know, you see the Blue Angels in San Francisco. And this is what a cockpit looks like. Of course, I'm sure certain people out there, but that's a Blue Angel. And Mach 1.7. Big aircraft though. But this one's damaged, as you can see. Look, it's been damaged. The very first balloon took off from France. And John Adams saw that balloon take off. So that was the Air and Space Museum. And we're probably going to head into the car museum. And why not? But yeah. And of course this is a Navy fighter jet. But yeah, just one more look at the SR-71. It scared people. But yeah, we'll go into the car museum next. Oh look, we're right next to the airport. Folks, San Diego is one of the, of course I drove here, but San Diego is one of the scariest runways out there. They have the same runway to get on and off, and they share it with the Army and the military and whatnot. So we're gonna head on over to Car Museum. So yeah, dual feature going to the Auto Museum of San Diego. Remember folks, I did a paper back in college called The Car Culture. Right in the flight path of Tanza. We're right in the flight path. This is the San Diego Lamborghini San Diego Car Museum. And so here's a Corvette motorcycle. Route 66. I already did it, folks. So, but this is just a little car museum here. These are just cool cars. What we got here? Alfa Romeo, Italian. Rares of the Lost Ark. Excuse me. Last Crusade. Some cool motorcycles, an Indian, 1947.
Now I can get the whole thing.
1947 Indian. 1940 is a bit Indian collection. Evel Knievel. And Daredevil. Henry Fonda. Steve McQueen. Paul Newman's bike. This vehicle here, this yellow one, broke the land record, speed record in Salt Lake. This is a Rolls Royce solar powered car. Tesla Roadsters, all electric. Bunch of old Harleys and classic Harleys here. Harley Davidson. 1916 Harley. Yeah, a nice motorcycle collection here. Chevy Bel Air. A 61 Chevy Impala Super Sport. This car, very fast muscle car. Old gas pumps. I have a lot of motorcycles here. Norton's a British bike.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
You're hiding in the shadows.
Yeah. Designer cars and 1927 Model T Roadster. It's been chop shopped. Ooh, a DeLorean. Back to the Future. One of my all-time favorites. You want a sick pick? Yeah, DMC DeLorean. Really cool car. It's gutless, but we gotta try see the DMC DeLorean. My favorite movie, 1984 DeLorean. Let's say these bastards united. But this is an automatic. So this is a 84 DeLorean. This sucker's electrical. It's an automatic. And the movie is a stick. I'm a little surprised about that. So, it's supposed to be a stick. Gotta watch your head. Model A. Auto wrap. What is that?
An auto buggy.
This is a 1909 auto buggy. Competitor of Ford, of course. It's a very, very complicated vehicle. It looks simple, very complicated at how it looks. And obviously they drove on this side of those days. They had clutches and everything, as you can see. Very hard to get in and out of, too.
Oh yeah, I know. Yep.
Very big car.
He spent. Initially, he built to go camping.
18 Rolls Royce. Mercedes-Benz Special Roadster. I'm all done with my Model T.
Yeah.
Remember, folks, the original Model Ts were all black. They weren't anything else.
Well, they had other colors.
I said any color you want, as long as it's not black. As long as it's black, because it's the only thing that was cheap. Look at this vehicle. 85 Chevy Coupe Lowrider.